When I sat down with Kristy Mandour for this conversation, I knew we'd have a lot to talk about because not only is Kristy incredibly thoughtful about her work, but she's also someone I've had the chance to know and work with personally. Kristy is the founder of So to Speak, and she helps leaders and founders uncover their most authentic, confident voice, especially when they're stepping into greater visibility. But what I love about her approach is that this conversation is about so much more than public speaking tips or learning how to command the room. We talk about what's really underneath all of that: the identity shifts, the self promotion, nervous system regulation, the fear of being seen, and how to come back to yourself so you can speak in a way that actually feels true to who you are. So, whether you're in a corporate role, leading a team, thinking about building something of your own, or already running a business and trying to show up more visibly, I think there's so much in this conversation that will resonate. So, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Kristy Mandour. Welcome to Scale with Clarity, the podcast for entrepreneurs who are building a business and a life that actually feels good. I'm Brooke Cunninger, fractional CFO, strategist, and mom of three, and I've learned that scaling isn't just about hitting revenue milestones. It's about finding alignment between your big vision and your everyday reality. Each week, you'll hear honest conversations with founders who are redefining success on their own terms. We'll talk about the pivots, the aha moments, and the tough decisions behind the scenes. Plus, the surprising ways entrepreneurship becomes the greatest personal growth journey of all. Whether you're dreaming of leaving corporate, navigating the messy middle, or trying to grow without burning out, this show is here to help you scale with more clarity, confidence, and ease. Because building a business should expand you, not deplete you. Let's scale with clarity together. Kristy, hi.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. So glad I'm here. I feel like we're a little NPR, both like bellied up to our mics.
Because we've been talking for 10 minutes before we even push record.
I know. I did just feel myself go, oh, I'm on. Now I need to like get my voice.
Right?
What am I talking about?
And
No.
I'm like, no,
I know
we're
better.
just gonna, let's just dial that back. Let's remove the curtain for anyone listening. No, Kristy and I worked together. We were in a group program together. This is 2 years? Do we go back 2 years now? Like what's
At least. And also,
right?
Brooke, I'm your client. Let's talk about that. I want to
Okay,
highlight
we can
you.
go
being
there
a
if you want to
phenomenal
go there.
Fractional CFO.
We can go there if you
Yeah.
want. I love it.
Whips
You are
me into shape.
You are my first client that I've had on here. And ironically enough, not talking about my services. Maybe I should do that actually too. This would be a good.
Wait, I'm sorry. As listeners, as Brooke flips her hair over her left shoulder.
Oh, everyone. We brought I brought Kristy on
we're
here
getting
to
off the rails.
talk about myself. Kristy, will you just now that I've just talked to it, will you introduce yourself and what your business is? Because that's what we want to talk about.
I will. Okay. So I am Kristy Mandour. I'm the founder of So to Speak, and my business is a company on a mission to support leaders and founders in really uncovering their most authentic and confident voice, mostly for those who are stepping into greater visibility, which we can unpack a bit.
Can I just, all right, we're going to unpack it so many ways.
But how does everywhere?
So many. How did you get into that? I'm throwing you a curveball because this wasn't anything we talked about. But I'm just
I love curveballs.
Yeah. What did you see a need? Have you always been interested? Like, did you see people like quieting themselves? What brought you into this?
What brought me into it were it really was a few different things that all intersected. So
Yeah.
early on, always into human behavior and the human condition, always into writing and movies and
Yeah.
screenwriting and acting, and went to college for communications and then went to New York City for acting and writing, and always loved it. Never was like, I love acting so much that I want to be romanticizing eating out of ramen like noodle
Yeah. And
containers
just
and
like
Campbell
living that.
soup
Yeah.
with a spoon. Like there was nothing, and there are some people who are like, I don't care, I'm just going to do. So
I
I was
love
like,
the
well,
art.
I love it, but I always knew there was a possibility to take the skills that people have within the performing arts and transfer them. They're the epitome transferable skills when it comes to communication. So I was like, there has to be a way to take these skills and the tenets of performing,
Yeah.
bring them into regular life to help people communicate better.
Yeah. I love that. Did you ever find yourself struggling, like when you were in the world of acting and performing arts, like, did you ever have the fear that you see some of your clients, like, or have you always been someone that was like, "I can speak what I want, I can," but you saw others kind of
Oh, no.
right.
I think the reason I really am so passionate about this is because I use the skills that I share. So, I really look at myself more as a teacher. I'm like,
Yeah,
I've gathered this information, this knowledge. I have experienced it and experimented with it by putting it to practice. I've tweaked it to make it my own, and now I
yeah,
wanna share it with as many people as possible because it works. And the majority of my clients are similar to me in the sense that they're high achieving, high
yep,
functioning, leaning anxious.
yep.
They tend to go really
I'm
quick.
raising my hand, yes.
And I so I feel like the first thing that happens, there's 2 things that happen anytime I work with somebody. They feel relieved first because they feel not alone,
Yeah,
and they feel liberated. Those are the 2 words that clients say over and over again. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like there's like I physically can see them."
yeah.
Majority of people are all over the country, so we're on Zoom, and I can see their shoulders drop, like this sense of, "Oh my gosh, I'm not the only one," kind of feel. And then as we move through different programs that I have, the word that keeps coming through is liberated or freedom. And I'm like, "That's done. That's my job."
What
So
do Sorry to interrupt, but, like,
no,
I love
interrupt.
I mean, hearing that word too, it's like, "Oh my god." Like, for me, it's clarity, like,
Yeah,
hearing that just is lighter, and then, like, liberation or freedom, and
yeah.
do you think that comes from a release of any fear they have around speaking their voice or whatever, or is it just they've come into knowing themselves, and so their confidence is higher? Like, what do you think that feeling comes from?
I feel like it's a yes and. I don't feel like it's an either or. I
Mm,
feel like there is a combination of both. And it's the sense of feeling safe enough to admit where the challenges really are, not where they think they are. Because a lot of people come to me very skills oriented. Like,
yeah,
I want skills to speak better. And then the vast majority leave. I don't want to say leave because they continue on in some way, say, but when they get to an end of one piece of the program, they're like, I had no idea what I was in for in the best way. Like, I did not know that this was going to happen. And there is this sense of freedom because it's almost like I always say, like, it's like a invisible weighted jacket that
yeah,
they get to drop. And
yeah,
they don't feel naked, right? We always get scared. We
yeah,
always think about feeling naked and exposed. And when we're speaking, when the spotlight is on us. And it's more about them understanding, first of all, how our brains really work. So
yeah,
this is normal for us to feel this way, for them to be able to create the biggest piece about the performing arts that I bring in is to be able to create characters or ways to talk to the parts of themselves that get really overwhelmed or scared or pissed off or resentful or excited or happy.
yeah,
Very inside out, like for those
yeah.
of your listeners who,
Have children
watch.
or just
I think
like
the
Pixar.
majority of people know it.
Pixar? Yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
possibly. But it's so that, and it's very much how can they start to re-relate to themselves in a way that feels very whole. Like I always say to them, whole is the goal. It's not
yeah,
about uncovering part of yourself and banishing it to the basement. It's more about being able to say, like I this one has been coming up so frequently, and I'm like, once you actually pay attention to what thought is dominant in your mind, even as scary as it can feel, that's why you're not supposed to do it alone.
yeah,
Come on. You're going to find such relief because that part of you is gonna feel seen. Then you're gonna very gingerly take the proverbial mic out of their hand, go,
yeah,
"No, no, no, you don't need the mic anymore," and they're gonna be so relieved. They're gonna be like, "Thank God. I've been doing this for decades and I'm exhausted. Like,
yeah,
I need a nap." I mean, it's like you picture a five-year-old on a stationary bike, like, sitting on a pile of phone books and just dripping with sweat and biking as fast as they can, not going anywhere, and that's really what's happening when we're in that anxious space of
yeah,
feeling like we need to answer, we need to, um and if we are seen, we need to do it perfectly, so that's why when we do have this moment of speaking up or sharing an idea or having, inevitably a difficult conversation,
yeah,
no matter what you deem difficult, it's very subjective. We do tend to fly into this fight, flight, fawn, or freeze
yeah,
state because we're so unprepared
Yeah.
and we go back to habits of protection. So the more people learn ahead of time, like, oh, it is very normalized. I always say
Yeah.
it's like you want to notice your thought, you want to neutralize it, and you want to normalize it.
There's so many things I wanna, like, double tap on or dig in because that you just said, which is so where do I wanna go first? First, the invisible jacket, like you said, that you take that off, and that so resonates with me, and I think a lot of people listening because I'm making an assumption here of when people come to you, but I would think you don't even know oftentimes you don't even know you're struggling, like, you're just especially those of us that are in more, um I'll say like analytical roles. We're just we've never been in like the performing arts where something like speaking up and just kind of or or maybe an extrovert where you're just used to kind of putting that energy out there. You don't know how much you are kind of shying away from it or haven't had to use those skill sets until maybe you are put in a position where you've been promoted, you have a team, you kind of you're kind of forced into the spotlight in some form or fashion, however bright it may be. And I think then it's like it shines a light on there, and what I'm also hearing from you is when that happens, this is so like easeful, like, this is where, like, the term that you were talking about, because to me, my brain automatically goes, "Okay, you've gotta step more into maybe perhaps something that doesn't feel natural to you." Like, what the feedback I would get, is like, "You've gotta be more assertive than in the meeting," or, "You've gotta speak up more," and so you kind of are pushing yourself more into this, like, uncomfortable place, whereas what you're saying is it's actually other things going on, and the goal is to step more into yourself. Like, really, like, you're not trying to be anyone you're not. It's just listening to what's going on with you, and then, like, what do I really want out of that? Is that right, how what I'm hearing from you?
It's one possibility, right? So, yeah, so some people absolutely, I hear that often, and there's 2 things to say. If we're talking because we have tracks for org leaders
Yeah.
who are advancing and we have tracks for founders, and when you're talking about org leaders specifically, the vast majority are promoted, and as they get promoted, they're promoted because of how they have been performing,
Mhm.
yet they're promoted to not do anything more what they were doing and now
Yeah.
fully lead people. When
Yeah.
they're like, "No, I'm great at organizing, I'm great at managing projects, I'm great at," but now I'm fully in charge of speaking to people and communicating with people, and I'm not going to get the accolades anymore of completing a project. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. So
Mm.
it is about how are you presenting yourself, and at the same time, I think what's oftentimes missed is that there's an identity crisis. There's a bit of a grieving process of
Yeah.
really realizing that through all of your decades of schooling, the vast majority, if not all of our clients have some sort of athletic background.
Mm.
So they are constantly used to being acknowledged for their achievement that is tangible, that is completed. So now as you advance, you're working with people, there's no completion. There's
Mm.
no like, I know I did a good job because of this, because it's growth, it's people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a bit of an identity crisis.
How
I
do you
get that.
how about for that person and for that? What do you what are some steps? What do you how do you work through that? Is it identifying who your new identity is? Is it trying to release the need for that kind of cycle completion of confirmation or affirmation, whatever you're looking for?
It's to I would say it's to transfer it for most
Mm,
majority again, of the people I work with are highly competitive, and I see
yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
So you don't wanna take away that passion and that fire. It's more about how can you transfer it in different ways to still have that energy of completion and not expect it to come from a person because then it erodes trust, because then what ends up happening is you look at the team that you're now leading as reflections of you, which it's hard to break that. So I'm not saying you're gonna fully break that because it does come back to you how they perform, but
Yeah.
it's more about how can you have this sense of competitive "I won" come from something else. And so I often tell people, what are things you love to do outside of work that can be a completion, whether it's running a race, I
Mm,
don't care if it's wallpapering your dining room, like something that's complete.
I love that.
Something that you literally one thing that's very simple that
Yeah.
isn't as much of a competitive edge, but is so wonderful and very easy to do is to write a thank you card because it's a beginning, a middle, and end, and it creates a sense of gratitude. So it shifts your perspective, but also
Oh,
gives you a natural dopamine hit of, I completed that. I there's something about, like, completing it, putting it
Kristy, I love that. I've never heard that. I love that. I
yeah.
talk to so many executives. I mean, my husband's still in this world too, and like just clients as well. And that's such a thing. You get to a level, and I know we're talking about speaking, but I've never even thought of it that way, is you get to a level where you're not getting the feedback you were used to. And honestly, you're not because, there's higher expectations. You're not
Mhm.
getting it from above, and your team isn't thanking you for so how can you find it yourself in other areas? And it can be real, like you said, that it doesn't have to be a huge accomplishment. It can be writing a thank you note, but you're
It
flipping I love that.
it's exactly right, and also it's knowing yourself. If that makes you eye roll, then you can either gamify it and say, "How
Mhm.
many thank you notes can I get out this week?"
The
And make it
competitive
like
thing, yeah.
10, and then can it be to 10 mentors I've had in my life? Oh, that could be fun. Or if it's not that at all, sign up for some sort of a race or start a project at home that you've been wanting to do that isn't going to be too much of an energy exertion because chances are you have kids, you
Yeah,
have a husband or a wife, and you also have all the responsibilities at work. But the biggest thing is that majority of those who are like wanting to high achieve and continue on and get the promotion
yeah,
beyond director up to like VP C-suite, they don't realize how much they're being removed from that strong
yeah,
connection to tangible outcome completion. So that's so before because the reason that I say that first is because that's underneath
yeah.
all of the voice. So when people
Mm,
say, be more assertive, you need to own your voice, you need to command the room, those are so general and
yeah,
arbitrary. It's like, so I always say, go back to your boss and
yep,
say, I so understand that you want me to show up a little differently. I want to understand what you define, fill in the blank.
mm.
Get clear. Don't, I mean, own the room is so vague and
And it's
command
unique to every business person, like,
it's
what that means.
exactly and I'll share an example. So I had one client who's VP
Mhm,
of HR, and she was told to command the room. And she was like, "I don't even know what that means, and that's so out of my wheelhouse, and it doesn't feel comfortable." And once we explored it a little bit more, what she realized is she gets so excited in this very grounded, magnetic way when she talks about sharing stories of evidence of having engagement from employees or
mhm,
having this feedback from their customers really shine through and sharing that with the board and the rest of the executive
yeah,
leadership team. That's commanding the room because she's excited, it's contagious, she's focused. Commanding the room is presence.
yeah,
That's it. So the person who is booming their voice the loudest is very antiquated way of us
yeah.
thinking of commanding the room.
Couldn't agree more. Sometimes that's just actually a turn off and people stop listening.
100%.
So and I wanna flip to the founder clients that you have too, but on this track, do people often come to you because they have maybe they've gotten feedback? Is it often that they've gotten feedback of something that is stopping them from whatever goal, whether it's they've stepped into a new position or they want the next position, and so they're trying to work on something tangible? Is that usually why they come to you? And then obviously there's layers of that of to unpack that?
Yeah, it's both. So people will sometimes it's usually one of 2. So it's either they are recently promoted
Mhm.
and they're wanting to show up in a way that feels really authentic and confident, and they come from this place of I usually feel really confident and capable, and I'm quaking a little bit from the
Yep,
shift. It's more visibility, which is what I meant at the top of our conversation.
yep.
More eyes are on them, and so they're starting to feel overwhelmed by that.
Mhm.
And
And they notice that. Yeah.
they can feel it, and they lean into what I call proving energy,
Mm.
where they're constantly leaning in. It's like the Tracy flick, if
Yeah.
anybody remembers Election, with the arm raised constantly.
Yeah.
And the majority of the types of humans that I work with are absolutely wired for school type personality, meaning that we were programmed very early on
Yeah.
that fast wins. Like whoever has the fastest answer is the smartest person in the room.
Yep.
So our nervous system then is like super jacked up on top of all the other reasons it's jacked up. And you're there's something in you that's realizing this isn't sustainable. And
Yeah.
they almost can't articulate it. But once we get into the program and they have a chance to just pause for a second, what we start unpacking, the first thing we work on is understanding our brain and neuroscience and nervous system regulation. So it's like, okay, there is a lot of fear about me slowing down, but there's a cognitive dissonance because
Yeah.
there's a big part of me that knows I need to, but I'm scared to. So
Yeah.
we that takes a bit of time. And then once they're able to settle into that, then we start with specific practices that are really science backed, that
Yeah.
incorporate the creative arts and the performing arts. So it intersects art and science. And they're able to show up in a way that feels truly authentically more themselves. And they understand energy in the least woo way, right? It's
I love that.
science. They get it. They're like, oh, I am showing up differently. People are saying, I'm noticing a difference in how
It's
you're presenting. Yeah.
And what I'm
It's
hearing,
really
like,
cool.
I read there's so much out now too and just about, like, whole authentic leadership, and people are really craving that from their leaders and stuff, and that's what I'm getting from you is exactly what like, people may come like, the purchase with you may be because, like, a very specific thing that they think they need to they've gotten feedback or they
Yeah.
feel themselves being held back, but so importantly, what you really cover is the whole of that. Like, and I have to imagine that the impact is so much broader because once you know yourself and you can slow down and you can speak with clarity and you kind of speak from authenticity and where you are, I feel like, at least for me, I naturally gravitate to those people as leaders or I want to hear more from them. So I have to
Yeah.
imagine that it's a whole, like,
Well, that's executive presence. Like, when people
yeah,
talk about executive presence, which I think is still out there for sure, although I do think that's a bit more of a boomer kind of phrase,
yeah,
leadership presence, like, that
yeah,
sense of presence is what this is.
yeah.
That's what
Like
people are
knowing
noticing.
yourself.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
That's exactly what it is. It's being able to, instead of lean in, like I always say, Sheryl Sandberg did a great thing about having us all lean in and at the same time, there's a time to lean in and there's a time to lean back.
yeah,
And the more internally you can intuitively sense, like,
yeah,
and trust yourself, like,
yeah,
it's actually a time for me to lean back right now. That often shows this sense of inner confidence and trust that
yeah,
people can sense.
yes, and they wanna lean in and help support that more too, like, I want to
Well, they
support
want to
them.
be around it more.
Yes, who
That's more than anything.
isn't reactive, who knows themselves enough to say, "I can make a decision in this," or, "I'm gonna bring in the expert," like, just really confident in that aspect, and it doesn't mean you need to have all the answers or know everything, but it's just that's exactly where it starts with knowing yourself.
Yeah.
So, anyways, PSA to you and to anyone listening, obviously, that I can imagine that the downstream effects to back to the business are tenfold too, because once a leader has that, there's, I mean, so
Oh,
worth it
yeah.
too for
Well,
within a organization.
yes, and also it is everything that the upper echelon of C-suite want. They want engagement,
Yeah,
they want retention, they want profitability, and that is going to happen. And you might have some people, some of the leaves fall off. If you
yeah,
were a leader that stepped in and you tended to be a people pleaser and a pushover, and all of a sudden you start setting boundaries, you might have some people who are like, I'm out.
yeah,
Good, because if you're more aligned with yourself, you're now going to attract people
yeah,
who are probably more likely than not going to stay the long haul with you. And the
yeah,
second piece of what you were saying is I absolutely have people who are looking for a promotion. They're like, I want to, they might be an individual contributor. We don't have as many. We usually, I have to say, majority of our clients tend to be director level or higher if they're in an
yeah,
org. But if there are emerging leaders, a lot of times the VP, SVP, they will come to me and say, "Oh, do you work with emerging leaders? We have a few promising." And of course, we would do that. But usually it's the director or above that's like, "I really want to figure out
yeah,
how I can work with you because I want to be able to really do this justice." And the majority of them are like, "I really also want to do right by my team."
yeah,
So they are
yeah.
already in the right headspace of what they are wanting to.
So, and I don't even wanna say, I hate to say it's progressive thinking because it should just be normalized and, like, at a
Mhm.
baseline, but how can we expect our employees to kind of go from that doer, even a manager, up into really a senior leadership position without, it's such a different skill set. It's such a different way of thinking. And if we're not supporting them, and oftentimes it's based on the hope that they had a good manager that showed them how to do that. And we know that that's not often the case. So for an organization to invest in this, to really have this person step fully into it, we know that people try to emulate their leadership because that's what they see that is working. So don't you want a leader that is embodying the culture that you want in the business and is bringing in people that are doing that as well. So um I love that. I know we've talked before, but I'm like I'm like everything you're saying. I'm like yes, 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 and so can we shift gears really quick then
Sure.
to the so you also work with founders, and I know
Mhm.
that's a lot of our listeners too, or potential listeners that are thinking about doing that.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
tell me what is one of the main problems that founders come to you with in terms of speaking in their voice and that they're trying to work through?
Yes, self-promotion.
Mm,
Period, end of story, and it's like this huge umbrella with all these spokes, but if
yes.
you really had to get to the crux of it, it's self-promotion. So as much as I work with if you really look at it, it's like overarching, it's how to reframe the way you think of your voice and the
Yeah.
power of your voice and public speaking in a
Yes.
non-traditional sense. And then within that, it really is how can you stay steady with more eyes on you?
Yep.
With founders, it's specifically how can you show up in a way that feels true to you without feeling like a jerk, without feeling selfish. There's all the without feeling self-conscious, without feeling like everybody the silliest things that we think are so silly are you
Yeah.
and I both know when you're first starting out true, like, that everybody's gonna make fun of you, that you're gonna
Yep.
be too out there, that people are gonna think, "Oh my gosh,
What does she think she's
who
doing?
does
Or
she think she is, or what
Yeah.
is she doing? She's not even making sense." That's one big thing, like,
Mhm.
it doesn't even make sense. So there's a lot of, I wanna perfect it before I put it out there,
Mm.
and so one of the key things that we start working on is we do the same as we do with the org leaders in regards to nervous system regulation. Everybody takes an
Yeah.
energy assessment that we go through at the top and
Yep.
debrief it. And then we really get into what are you doing? Like what had you get into this business? What do you really want to do? And how can we consistently rewire your brain so that you're
Yeah.
focused on your energy going out to draw it like you're it's almost like each time you talk, you're throwing out a net
Yep.
bring in the clients who you actually wanna serve versus having the energy go in so that you're self-conscious feeling like everybody's staring at you and judging you, and you're
Yeah.
losing really, at the end of the day, it's to keep their mind on their purpose versus
Yep.
losing the main point of why they started their business in the first place.
I can I tell you where this leads my brain to in what
Sure,
I've been talking a
of
lot about?
course.
I'd love for you to be like, "No, we're gonna take this a different we'll take this a different direction." I've talked a lot about I know there's a lot of fear about leaving and going into entrepreneurship, and it is not for everyone. We can spend a whole 'nother segment on mindset and just the downfall, just all the highs and lows of that whole path. But I firmly, firmly, firmly believe in what I've been talking a lot about is especially with the current God, not current, but the environment within corporate, it was not nothing is safe right now. And so the best thing you can do for yourself, whether you want to leave eventually, now or never, is to learn how to monetize your own skill sets and build your personal brand.
Mhm,
So that is even if you always want to be in your W-2 job and you're loving it and you want to move on, being able to say, here's who I am. So if anything happens, I know what my skill sets, I know the problems I solve, I've built my brand, I have my network. And so with that comes exactly what you're talking about is kind of this self promotion, just to always have a plan B, even if you don't want to leave. And what I hear from a lot of people is exactly that. Even if the goal right now isn't like, I need to get my first client and leave, is I don't want to post on LinkedIn because that's like cringy or whatever the word is now they're using. And I'm still in my job. But I want to say it's so important to start creating what you stand for, even if there's no intent to leave. And I think that holds a lot of people back because people, within a job are like, oh, well, they're going to look at me like, why am I doing this? I don't, I'm either looking for another job or I'm trying to be somebody I'm not. So I feel like what you're saying pertains to everyone, even if you're not even in the founder role yet. Like, I think that's such an important skill set to start developing.
yeah, and one thing that's coming to me for specifically those people who are on the cusp thinking about it.
Yeah.
You don't have to post on LinkedIn. One way to do that is to comment. You can still
Mm,
stand your ground and create a personal brand by really vetting who's coming through your feed and
yeah.
even setting a timer for 10 minutes once a
Yeah.
month, once a week, and going through and being like, do the people coming through my feed, do the businesses coming through my feed really feed me? Like, do I get
Yeah.
inspired when I leave, or do I get jealous, or do I feel overwhelmed or am I exhausted? And just get a temperature check to what are you consuming? And then
Yeah.
from there, get really clear on what do I care about? And if I were going to do my own thing, what would I want
Yeah.
to be? And then start following people in those fields or in the industry or people you admire, and then start commenting on their posts because then you're still going to get some visibility, but
Yeah.
it will be dipping your toe in it versus feeling like you dove in the deep end butt naked and everybody's staring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think and this goes into your work too, but I mean, the thing that stopped not even stopped me, but I had left, and so I had no qualms about, like, a job thinking I'm trying to do anything, but I still had the fear of, like, visibility and being seen, but part of it was, what do I even stand for? Like, what do I care about? What would I even say? If that's what I would say, what would I even say? And I love that recommendation around the commenting piece because I feel like that just starts getting you and correct me if I'm wrong, 'cause this is your, like, area of expertise, but it starts helping you learn, like, what is your voice? Like, what do you like, positive or negative? What to your point, what brings you energy that's coming through and you, like, are driven to comment on because you have an opinion on it versus you don't, and I feel like just starting to get that back as opposed to a lot of times in a job, we're just in receiving mode trying to just be the best of what we're told to be as opposed to kind of coming from our, like authentic self, and so I feel like that's a really good kind of micro recommendation to
Mhm.
test out to start like, okay, what does your voice sound like? And how can you do it without like calling huge attention to yourself?
Yeah, that's exactly right, and to piggyback on that, there's also that idea that it's really shifting the reframe, so because it may feel for a lot of people are in different camps, but if someone's in a camp of, I don't even know what I stand for, and I don't know if I have the courage right now to claim a space. You don't have to. This is where you're doing research right now.
Yeah.
All you're doing is collecting data. You're researching what fills you up, what gets you excited. And to that point, anything like I said before that does tend to get you jealous. One of the best reframes I ever heard from Julia Cameron, who's very famous for The Artist's Way,
Mm, mhm.
among other books, is to look at when you do feel jealousy, instead of trying to push it down or shame yourself, shift it to inspire. Because the majority of times when you're feeling jealousy, you're really inspired by someone having something that you don't have. So allow it to turn to what is it that is inspiring me, and it will lead you in a different direction that could be very fruitful for you.
Yeah.
And the second piece to that is when you are starting to understand what you stand for and exploring that, think about it from more of, again, like energy out. Like, what would I want to be connected to contributing? And then we're natural creatures of belonging and contribution. So
Mhm.
when we think about our voice alone, it tends to ostracize us and we start
Yeah.
feeling like we literally are being pulled away from the tribe, and it
Yeah.
can feel incredibly overwhelming. So instead, I would say, look at like, what do I what would I want to contribute? What do I want to where do I see that there's something that I do have a
Mm,
skill set that I want to add to versus being the only one to like stake my flag in the ground.
yeah. I love that. I mean, we can go into masculine energy versus feminine and the benefits of all of that, but I think oftentimes I go into the masculine way of thinking when it comes to speaking and just like putting your voice out there. And like you said too, sometimes it can feel ostracizing to me because it's just like, I like, hear me, here's what I'm going to have to say. But I love that reframe too. That
Well,
feels
yeah.
very like comforting. Like, I want to be part of this conversation and make you feel heard by me adding on to what you're saying.
Totally, and it's very again, whole. It's
Yeah.
masculine and feminine because
Yeah.
feminine from receiving, what do I want to? Anytime it's a wonder, like,
Yeah.
I wonder what," that is feminine,
Yeah.
and then the masculine is taking that's when people hear about inspired action, that's
Hmm.
inspired action. You're saying, "Huh, I wonder," and then you're taking action from that place versus from, "I just wanna make a stand because I haven't been heard for 30 years," which could happen too.
Yeah.
Go for it. There's a lot of wonderful things that come from that once you alchemize that frustration and anger into a
Yeah.
higher, more beneficial energy level. But it's and what the one thing I would leave people with is just this idea of look at it as experimenting and curiosity, because when you look at
Yeah.
it as experimenting, you know it's not permanent.
Yeah.
You're checking things in, you're wondering, you're getting clear. That's it.
I love
And
that.
and then you go from there. It doesn't have to be like, "I'm making this decision." Sometimes when we get really nervous, we get black and white, and it's like, "I need to quit," or "I need to
Yeah.
stay," or "I need to." You don't.
No.
That should be your signal to slow your roll and
Yeah.
reach out to somebody who can support you and being able to be a sounding board.
I agree. I love that
Yeah.
too, because the same with curiosity too. It really shuts off the fear, or you said like the jealousy or the whatever it is. And it's like, I wonder why I'm thinking this, or I wonder what it could be, what I could do next. You're not holding yourself accountable to any type of change or whatever it may be. It's just leading with curiosity. So,
Yeah, and then that's where you speak more from a place that's when you start understanding what your
yeah,
authentic voice is. So coming back to that, when you can get to that place of wonder, that's when you start feeling more aligned, you start feeling more inspired. You're not caring about the naysayers. You're focused on the people who really could benefit from what you have to contribute, and that's when your voice starts aligning with
yeah,
what's authentic. That's when I come in and help with the strategies to bring that out more, but before we have to do all of the internal reframing so that you show up in a way consistently
yeah.
internally that allows you to shift your lens and perspective.
Christy, I mean, I know we spoke very specifically. You have a couple groups of the population that you work with, but what I know and people listening, this is needed by everyone because I've seen so many programs that are very tactical and specific. And I think a lot of times, like, okay, what are the three things I need to do to just like get up on that stage and speak and give
Mhm.
me and it really is about like peeling back the onion of who you are and being the most you. Because we can look to so many leaders that are vastly different from each other, but are very successful in their own right because they are kind of grounded in the way that they work unapologetically, and bringing people in. So that's why I love what you're doing, and I wanted to bring you on here too because it doesn't matter who's listening at what point you are, and if you wanna leave or if you wanna speak on a big stage or you've just been promoted, but, like, really coming back to yourself, figuring out what your voice is, figuring out how to kinda regulate that, and then coming from that clarity with the tactical steps that you can provide them to is just, like you said earlier, is just this freedom and this, like, clarity, this, like you take off this jacket too. It just can feel like, "Oh gosh, it's just me now. I'm not, like, trying harder. It's easier at this
Yes.
point too." I love that. So,
Yes.
if people wanna work with you, how do they find you? And maybe just talk a little bit about your programs, which I'll put it all in the show notes as well.
Sure. So the podcast is the best place to go. So the So to Speak podcast, SOW, and that is on our website too, but So to
Okay.
Speak podcast. And every week I offer tips on communication across the board in so many different ways. Right now, we're really focusing on ways that you can show up with more confidence and courage, specifically in a moment, right? Versus like we have topics on feedback and hard conversations and self promotion and all of that, but right now it's like, how can you step away from over explaining the tendencies we have? I should say
Yes.
that. Right now, we're really
Yes.
focused on how to lean away from the habits and the tendencies we have so that we can feel safe to be more courageous and confident in how we speak. So
Yes.
that's that. And then all of our programs are on the website as well. I
Posted it.
will just say that so that people can scoot in and learn about what's working for them.
Go
And we have
we'll
a free
put
master class.
yes.
So our free master class is I'm thinking
Monthly, right? Is it?
went well. It's gonna be in April. It's
Okay.
the 3rd Tuesday in April, I think by
Okay.
the time this comes out
Yes.
at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. It's 60 minutes. It's free. It's virtual. I share my most popular exercise that clients love. People who join in, they're like, "That was the best 60 minutes," because I'm not a fan
Quick
of
and
making it.
actionable
It's
and
That's exactly right. It's
yeah.
accessible, there's an insight, but then you can integrate it the minute you're done, no matter what's coming up next for you, and it works. Like, you feel shifted in that amount of time, so
I love that. Okay.
definitely.
I'll put all that in the show notes. Everyone
Yes.
needs to tune in. And I love also the podcast that you do. Is it weekly? I forget. Does it come out weekly or how
It
often?
is back to weekly. I took a
Back to
little
weekly.
hiatus. We were doing
Yeah.
tons of building last year and creating, you know that, with
Yes.
programs and stuff like that, so it took a little hiatus, but I am back.
Yeah. I love that. So the tidbits that you share on there too are super helpful for everyone too. So yeah, I love it's almost like obviously taking your own advice, which is short, get more clear, not over explaining. It's very actionable, kind of clear.
It is.
And you can do it in the moment too. It's not like this yeah, something you need
And
to
they're
work on for the
short.
next
It's like 15, 20 minutes. So
yeah.
if you're commuting, if you're making dinner, one of my newest clients said it exactly what we want, which is, I feel like when we start working together, I already know you. And it was just like
Yes.
a natural segue. I
Yes.
go, that's the point.
Yes, yes, listen in, know, like, and trust, right? So now it's
That's
just like
exactly
working with a
right.
friend.
Yes.
That's the goal for
Yes.
everyone. So,
Totally.
Kristy, thank you. Thank you for coming on here, sharing all of this insight, which is so helpful to everyone. And then, of course, anyone would benefit from working with you. So we'll put all that in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was so
Thank
much
you.
fun.
I love working with you and having you on. Hey there! If this episode sparks something for you, I'd really love to know. Shoot me an email or leave me a comment on the episode. Those messages really do mean more to me than you realize. And if you're craving more clarity in your business or your career, you can explore ways to work together at www.scalewithclarity.com. You guys, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to the episode. I always love recording these and sharing them with you, and looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of Scale with Clarity.